declared my dual major in college, political science and religion, a good friend's mother looked at me and quite earnestly said, "What will you talk about at polite dinners?" It seems that we think socially that if we simply ignore the two topics that matter the most to us, how we live together and the fundamental meaning of our lives in the universe, we will get along better. So to that vein, I'd like to read you a portion of a letter about social and political demonstrations that was written to clergy by clergy. I have edited it and condensed it for the sake of removing localizing and temporal markers, but listen now and see if you can recognize the letter. In Washington, D.C., recent public events have given indication that we all have opportunity for a new, constructive, and realistic approach to our problems. We recognize the natural impatience of people who feel that their hopes are slow in being realized. But we are convinced that demonstrations are unwise and untimely. We agree rather with certain local leadership which has called for honest and open negotiation of issues in our area. And we believe this kind of facing of issues can best be accomplished by citizens of our own metropolitan area, rich and poor, black and white, Democratic and Republican, meeting with their knowledge and experiences of the local situation. All of us need to face that responsibility and find proper channels for its accomplishment. Just as we point out that hatred and violence have no sanction in our religious and political traditions, we also point out that such actions as incite to hatred and violence, however technically peaceful those actions may be, have not contributed to the resolution of our local problems. We do not believe that these days of new hope are days when extreme measures are justified. We further strongly urge our own community to unite locally in working peacefully for a better country. When rights are consistently denied, a cause should be pressed in the courts and in negotiations among local leaders and not in the streets. We appeal to all our citizenry to observe the principles of law and order and common sense. It's a beautiful letter, no? But as you might have figured out or know, it has been proven, and in some cases still today is being proven, to be on the wrong side of history. You see, this was the letter written by the Birmingham, Alabama clergy to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in an attempt to use the rhetoric of the Christian faith and civil discourse to subvert the marches that would, in the words of one writer, end the terror of living as a black person in the South. From the church's endorsement of Hitler, to this letter here, to the defense of traditional norms of family not found anywhere in the Bible, really, by the way, that when religion, particularly the Christian religion, is cited in political arenas, in warfare or in social policy, it is usually on the side of the status quo. More often than not, religion is the screen behind which good people, clergymen, law-abiding citizens, and the risk-averse hide. The scripture says we are called to be courageous, to refuse to vow allegiance to an unjust ruler or rule, to step bravely into the foyer, into the fire, knowing that God will literally be on our side. Nebuchadnezzar was known as the destroyer of nations. He flattened the first Israelite temple and he took Jewish youth into slavery. That's what it was. Renaming them, stripping them of their native tongue, he demanded not simply allegiance but worship, to be recognized as the most important and most powerful. But with all of his wealth and all of his power, history remembers equally this story of 3 youth who refused to bow down. As Martin Luther King Jr. wrote in his response to the letter, frankly, I have yet to engage in a direct action campaign that was well-timed in the view of those who have not suffered unduly from the disease of segregation. For years now, I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with piercing familiarity. This wait has almost always meant never. We must come to see with one of our distinguished jurists that justice too long delayed is justice denied. There is nothing new, he continues, about this kind of civil disobedience. It was evidenced sublimely in the refusal of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to obey the laws of Nebuchadnezzar on the ground that a higher moral law was at stake. From the call to pick up one's cross, to the letters of Paul in jail, to the trials in today's story, the scriptures call us not to obedience, but to transformation and to courage. Not long ago, I received a text from a former youth, and the text read, and I have asked permission to share it, "If I'm being honest, I think the reason I don't like Jesus is because I don't like the Bible. And I don't like the Bible because people interpret it as a rule book. Do you really think all this changing of religion is worth all the problems religion causes?" It's something that I hear quite frequently, and it makes sense to me as a complaint. I think I said yes, simply, because I don't think religion is usually the cause of war at all, simply perverted for it. But what I should have done was forward a link to Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter, because ours is a complex world. At our borders, children are being detained 25 to a room, without beds or soap or toothbrushes or parents. Immigrants are being threatened daily for the misdemeanor offense of crossing an invisible line in the sand to escape violence. Black and brown bodies are incarcerated at more than 5 times that of white, serving longer sentences for less violent or serious offenses. Debtors' prisons have made a comeback, with the poor being arrested and held for legal debts they have no hope of ever paying. The problems of environmental and social justice, poverty and hunger, violence and war cannot be solved in isolation. Nor will these causes be furthered if we separate them from the love and faith of this place that teaches us mature and respectful ways of communication. Yes, religion can be and has been used by individuals and isolated movements as a justification for radical and violent ends, but this is in fact further proof that religion and questions of moral witness cannot be held in isolation, but must in fact be held in community, must be held to the light and tested. In fact, it seems to me that religion is at its most dangerous not when it is being revolutionary, but when it is being used to uphold the status quo, when it is unquestioned. Instead, our faith should call every allegiance into question. Our faith should enable us to put our assumptions to the test, all of them. What I wanted to say to that youth is, it is in fact our decision to outsource questions of social behavior to morally neutral arenas that creates the distance necessary for atrocities to occur in our name. As one writer puts it, describing the effect of Martin Luther King Jr. on African Americans, they told us, whatever you are most afraid of doing vis-a-vis the white people, go do it, because if we do it all together, we'll be okay. If we do it all together, we'll be okay. Once people had been beaten, had dogs sicked on them, had fire hoses sprayed on them, and been thrown in jail, you know what happened? The writer continues, these magnificent young people began singing freedom songs in jail. That, my friends, is what ended the terrorism. Confronting your worst fears, living through it, and breaking out in a deep-throated freedom song. Now, the stories of our faith are essential to teach our children. Because like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, our faith should enable us to walk courageously into the arenas of moral and public debate, knowing if we do it all together, we will be okay. Knowing that if we go together, from the outside looking on, it will be clear that we do not go alone. Rather, walking beside us goes the Spirit of the living God, not simply with us, but within. Thanks be to God.